Despite the markets pulling back after Bitcoin briefly hit a new all-time high above $69,000, Crocoin is still up 80% over the past month and up about 100% over the past year. Now, if you mark this from the bottom, this coin is actually up about 200% from the 5 cent level where it basically was for about a 6-month period. So in today's episode of the Everything Crypto Show, we are going to break down why I believe this altcoin is recovering so much and why I also believe that this rally is set to continue into the bull run. Now, before we hop into the content, just a friendly reminder that I am not a financial advisor. I am simply here for your crypto news and entertainment purposes. And if you do enjoy the content, please consider hitting that sub and like button and turn that notification bell on so you can be notified when all of our latest videos go live on the channel. And with that, we're going to get right into today's altcoin of discussion, and that is none other than Crocoin. Now, if you've been with the channel for a while, you know that we were talking about this project, basically the whole time we were down here in this accumulation zone. I did say that in hindsight, this was probably going to be one of the cleanest and kind of like the biggest risk reward plays on the market. And if we zoom out, you can kind of see why. I mean, just from a risk reward perspective alone, you can see that Crow, for the better half of like a year, was basically trading in the bottom range of its entire price history. And I did believe that this 5 cent level was going to act as the bottom. We are now up about 3x from that level. But once again, I mean, if you zoom out, there is still a lot of room to go for this thing to touch all-time highs. Now, we did make a video, I believe it was over the weekend, discussing that I do think Crocoin is headed back up to 20 cents. We almost hit it, getting up to 18.5 before we did see a broader market pullback. But the pullback so far actually has been pretty bullish for this coin, and we're going to talk about why I think that this move is set to continue. So, to kind of understand this portion of the chart and why this 12 and this 13 cent area more or less is actually so important, we have to go back to November of 2022. And that's actually when we did see the collapse of FTX. And following this collapse of FTX, we saw a ton of exchange FUD going around. And Crypto.com was no exception to this FUD, okay? The CEO had to take to Twitter, YouTube, and I also saw him on CNBC basically telling people that customer deposits were safe. They were not comparable to FTX. And the reason there was a lot of FUD regarding Crypto.com is because just before the FTX collapse actually occurred, they'd done some major layoffs. So people were basically insinuating that the layoffs were done not because they were trying to cut costs, but because they were insolvent. We also did see, CZ, the CEO of rival exchange Binance, basically saying that it's a clear sign of problems and to stay away from Crypto.com. And this basically did mark the big collapse of Crocoin. In terms of the price action anyways, we saw like a 50% decline in the matter of a week. And this is exactly when that happened, okay? So just for some context, we basically saw this thing decline from 12.5 cents all the way down to 5 cents within the matter of a week. And if you zoom out here, 5 cents did act as a very strong area of support back in December of 2020. So based on the belief that, Crypto.com was solvent and that a lot of this news was really just FUD, I did think the 5 cents was going to be a pretty strong bottoming area for this altcoin. And the reason I'm citing this 13 cent level, actually, 12.5 cents, whatever you want to call it, is because if we actually look at the chart right here, okay, this is where Crow did get rejected before falling that 50%. And if we actually take a look at the weekly candles over here, it did in fact backtest this level as an area of support. So right now, zooming out, this chart does look really clean in my opinion, and I don't see too much resistance up until that 20 cent area. So there you have it. Crypto.com, obviously it's been about a year and a half since the bankruptcy FUD happened. The company is still solvent. They are still operating, still growing. So moving forward, what are the catalysts and what are some of the other on-chain dynamics that could be pushing this altcoin higher? So something we frequently discuss is the Cronos POS chain. And you can see right now that this has about 9.618 billion Crow delegated to the chain. Now, with a circulating supply of 26.5 billion, a total supply of 30.2 billion, This is effectively equivalent to about 33% of all Crow coins circulating, currently locked up and staked on this chain. And I say locked up because of the dynamics of the chain itself. So this does not work. This is not, like liquid staking or flexible staking. When you stake your Crow on the Cronos POS chain, if you want to get it back, it is subject to a 28-day unbonding period, effectively meaning that you can assume, and I generally assume, that people locking up their Crow on this chain are in it for the long haul. I mean, clearly crypto is a very fast-moving industry, very fast-moving market, and if you are trying to trade something, you're probably not locking it up for a yield where you have to wait a month to get your coins back. You're probably only doing this if you are a long-term holder. So that's generally why I do consider the staking ratio for the Cronos POS chain to be a pretty bullish indicator, or bearish if it's going down, right? And the fact that about a third of the supply is locked up on the chain is a pretty good look, in my opinion. I mean, if we look at the Cronos chain here, we can see that this has about, 2.943 billion Crow on this chain. So if you put these two together, it's about 40% of all circulating Crow is interacting with these two different chains. But I don't really, take too much of a look at the TVL on the Cronos chain, just because this also has a lot of DeFi apps, VVS Finance, Tectonic. It functions very different from the Cronos POS chain, which is basically only used for the Crow and that lockup period, whereas Crow coin, on the Cronos chain is not necessarily being locked up. So I think that this is the important chain when it actually comes to the TVL metrics. And I do think that the fact that they recently buffed the staking yield should fare very well for the continuation of this increase. So you can actually see here that back at the beginning of 2023, about 20% of the Crow supply was staked on chain. That has swiftly made its way above that 33% threshold. And, in line with that, the APR has fallen. So we've seen the APR fall from about 12% more or less, and it was actually down in 5.5% area at one point. And now we actually saw this proposal pass, which means the staking yield was once again increased, which is why we could see once again more of an inflow in the amount of Crow coin being locked up on this chain. Now, something else that I do want to discuss here is the burn wallet. We do try to regularly update you guys on this as well, as record amounts of Crow coin does continue to be burned. We actually saw here back in mid-December that the first 50 million Crow coin was burned, and now we can see this wallet is already back up to about 27 mil. So we're well back on that way up to that 50 million milestone for another burn to take place. That is worth about $4 million worth of this altcoin after the recent surge that we have seen in the price. So I mean, pretty good for Crow coin there. The staking yield is going up. The amount of Crow coin being burned is going up. The price is going up. Everything has been pretty bullish for this altcoin as of late. Now, the one other thing that we have discussed is the new Cronos HYPERCHAIN that is set to go live. If you do want to learn more about this, feel free to check out the video we posted. I believe it was this past weekend or maybe the one before that. Really just breaking down the kind of like the in-depth summary of what is going on with this new Cronos HYPERCHAIN. But I do think this could also help drive a ton of demand and volume back to the chain. And I mention all of this because, we've been talking about Crow coin the whole time throughout this bear market, even when it was down here and, people were basically saying it was a dead coin. It was never coming back. I personally thought that was a massive bottom signal and didn't know exactly when that was going to happen, but it would appear, as of right now, that 5 cents was the bottom. I feel pretty confident saying it was the bottom. I mean, could we go back there? Of course we could. I am not always correct, but this was basically like a year-long accumulation zone that Crow was in before it did finally break out. And, the one thing I want to kind of talk about when it comes to Crow here is, first of all, the bull market support band. This was another big indicator for Crow coin that really helps, when you're taking a look at the chart. And second of all, if we just take a look at the way this altcoin has been, this reminds me a lot of what something like Chainlink looked like. So Chainlink is another one we spoke about in this accumulation zone back here. I said it looked prime for a breakout. The general thesis kind of being, the longer you base, the more you melt face. And really the general thesis behind that statement is that the longer something spends trading in a certain range, you have exhausted all the selling pressure, and then when it actually takes off out of that range, boom, there are no sellers left to keep this thing down. And to me, Chainlink did look like a textbook example of that. One that actually looks like that to me right now is Quant as well. This is another one of our favorite altcoins here on the channel. Again, looks to me like it has just been basing and is looking to make a move to the upside. And yeah, Crocoin, really does look like it was making a very similar, Chainlink-esque type of pattern there. And yeah, I mean, if we take a look at the bull market support band, okay, this is a really important indicator for Crocoin and for the general market, in my opinion. I mean, for me, this is like the #1 indicator that I use to kind of dictate and to kind of decide whether or not I believe an altcoin is looking bearish or bullish on the chart. It is pretty good for kind of helping identify, overall trends when it comes to the market. Now, if we take a look at Crocoin here, right, like even before it got, it kind of saw that 50% correction there based on the exchange FUD, we were just continuously getting rejected at the bull market support band, okay? Let me put us on a weekly. And yeah, you guys can see like just continuously getting rejected at the bull market support band. Okay, it happened here in April of 2022. It happened once again here in November of 2022. Then we saw that collapse. And even here in the new year, okay, after Crocoin did fall, we saw it get rejected 2 more times at the bull market support band. Now, when we actually broke out above it was here in late October, early November of 2023. And that is when I said I believe this thing was going to make a much bigger move to the upside. We even went ahead and back tested it as a level of support and have now continued on that move. So even from the breakout, at that 5.5-cent range, more or less, we can see that Crocoin is currently up from that level, give or take 150%. And, from the bottom that we put in there, it's actually up about 200%. So I do think that, assuming that the general market sentiment does stay bullish, I could see a 20-cent Crocoin in the near future. Now, to wrap things up, I do want to take a look at the Cronos to Bitcoin valuation as well. And this is one of those altcoins that clearly has a pretty big history of underperforming and then overperforming Bitcoin, or outperforming Bitcoin rather. And what we can actually see here is that we actually see on the Bitcoin pair, it also bounced off of a strong area of historical support. So we can see that here. We can see that here. And more importantly, in my opinion, is the fact that it is also looking to break above and backtest the bull market support band. So definitely keeping my eye on the CRO to USD chart as well as the CRO to Bitcoin pair. And on that note, I hope you did enjoy the content in today's video. You know what to do. If you made it all the way to the end, you are an absolute champion. Let me know in the YouTube comments down below and claim that champion status. I hope you are all staying happy, safe, and healthy, and I hope to catch you in the next one. Peace out for now.